Welcome. Welcome to Wharton Moneyball here on the Wharton Podcast Network. This is Eric Bradlow, Professor of Marketing, Statistics, and Data Science here at the Wharton School. Some combinations of myself, Cade Massey, Adi Wyner, and Jensen are here every week on Wharton Moneyball. For me, the best part of the last 11 and a half years have been our interviews with, if you'd like, they're now friends, but colleagues that are working in industry, that are actually applying statistics, data science to all kinds of interesting sports. Today is a returning guest. I don't even know. I'm going to guess 20 times he's been on the show, but it could be more over the last 11 plus years. Well, we're happy to welcome back Kevin Cole. Kevin is proprietor of Unexpected Points, a newsletter, Substack, if you'd like, formerly of PFF. And he's an NFL data analyst. And also, I'm sure we've talked to Kevin about this before, but as a former bond and equity analyst. So, Kevin, welcome back to Wharton Moneyball.
Well, thanks for having me back. I might take the under on 20. That sounds like rarefied air. But I consider myself more of a fan. More of a fan than anything.
Neil Kane might be the only one that's at 20. So there we go. But either way, it's good to have you back on the show.
It's good to be back. Like I said, I consider myself a fan, more of a fan, and an occasional guest, and a perennial fan.
Well, we appreciate that. So let me start with the following. One of the things, since you sent us some notes about what you wanted to talk about, one of the first topic here is one that people, I think, love, which is, Kevin, why do we need fancy analytics? Can't we just look at the win-loss record of teams? It's kind of like in baseball. Can't I just look at someone's batting average and see who's best? Why do I need this WAR and all these other fancy stats? So can you first explain why you think we need something different between record and team strength? And then secondly, which teams do you see so far this year that there's the biggest disconnect?
Yeah. I get a little lesson in public perception versus maybe what my numbers are telling me. Every week I put out my power rankings. You got to put out the power rankings. So every week I do this, and I'm trolling a little bit because I call them my 100% correct, the only 100% correct power rankings that come out each week.
You don't mean in an Anchorman type of way, like 100% of the time they're right half the time?
Yeah, 60% of the time it works every time from my rankings, and that would be pretty good in the betting market, right? So yeah, I mean, I think it's really just getting at an issue that we're all trying to discover the truth through prediction is a good way of kind of being able to discover the truth. I mean, no matter who we're talking about here, whether it's an analyst, it's Dan Orlovsky, or even if it's Stephen A. Smith, maybe someone who's doing more of the talk radio
Kevin, we don't use his name on this podcast.
You don't?
We don't? Oh, I didn't know. Oh, okay. I could have used his name, but okay, let's go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Or whoever you want to interject into there. I mean, at the end of the day, I think everyone is making at least an implicit prediction on what's going to happen. If they tell you this quarterback is better than this other quarterback, I mean, I think they're telling you they're probably going to perform better. I mean, maybe they'll have adjustments to that. After the fact, I'm sure they'll tell you why the guy they said was better didn't perform better because of the offensive coordinator or the line or other things like that. But everyone's kind of making at least an implicit prediction. So it's really just translating that explicitly into a prediction. And I think it's useful, although it's confusing to some people, because I think some people view the rankings and things like that being more like an AP college football type of poll in the past, where I saw some instructions. I was just looking this up today for AP voters, and they're explicitly told that you should judge by performance. So, also kind of known as results, and you should judge by head to head. You should judge by these sort of things. And of course, I'm not judging by those things. I mean, those are factored in, but they're not going to be part of an additional adjustment for trying to figure out how good these teams are going to be in the future. And I think that's where the disconnect comes, is number one, and kind of how people feel like is deserving or not, a sense of fairness maybe as to where they may be ranked. And then the second thing is probably just overvaluing what's happened win and loss wise, because it's hard to differentiate after you watch a game who was better or not based upon anything but the final result.
So, Kevin, before I turn things back over to Cade to lead this discussion, let me just ask you, so do you view your power ranking on Unexpected Points, do you view it as something that's backward looking, which is how much did Team A perform compared to Team B, or do you look at it as more forward-looking, like if Team A and Team B were to play each other in the future, this would be something about the expected outcome? How do you see it?
Yeah,
Or do
yeah,
you
no,
think those?
it's the latter. So it's done the same way that but Massey, Peabody, and others have kind of the standard formula, which is the expected point differential versus an average team on a neutral field. And then you build the rankings there. And what's also funny about the rankings, because when you just without the context of these team strength numbers that are underlying them, if someone is ranked 17th versus 12th, it's like, oh my god, I can't believe it, where the reality is we're talking about maybe less than a half a point difference in team strength that could flip oh so easily. So that's another, it's kind of a comical thing to put into it, but I have to put out the rankings every week because the people love it, and plus it gets me like $10 from X or something like
There we
that, so
go.
I'll take
And
it.
the first part of my question, and then I'll turn it over to Cade, would be, so which teams do you think there might be a disconnect between, I don't know, maybe you don't think the Broncos are any good. They're 10-2 or whatever they are, and maybe their team strength is lower than that. Or, I don't know, the Jaguars, 8-4, maybe they're not actually very good. I don't know. Which teams do you see the disconnect between?
Yeah, I think I hear a little bit more noise from people who believe their teams are underrated, and you named two of the top teams. I mean, the Panthers may be the number one team right now for people coming after me, because I didn't really move them that much based upon a win against the Rams, who according to my rankings are actually the best team in the NFL. And that kind of goes another layer, and I try to link to that and explain in my write-up when I'm talking about these teams, about how I actually analyze each individual game. And it was one of the bigger swings of saying the Rams lost by 3 points, but I put together this thing called adjusted scores, where I try to make a bunch of adjustments based upon the variance in high leverage situations, things that have less stickiness, like special teams play or fumble recoveries or things like that. And I actually had the Rams being 10 points better, which is really a huge shift. So again, they're looking at this, and in their assessment week over week, what should be happening is Panthers won against a great team, yes, at home, but against a great team by 3 points. And my assessment week over week is at home, the Panthers really kind of lost by 10 points. And that's a big loss for me, because again, I would be kind of stripping out some of these high variance things. So very often if a team wins by 20 or 25 points, my calculation is not that big, because normally winning by that much is a combination
Very
of two things. It's
interesting.
normally good luck and good play. That's the disconnect basically in people's minds between what they're thinking and then what my rankings are saying.
So, with all that talk about deserving versus power rankings, I thought you were talking college football. I was so excited. I thought, wow, Eric shocked me by not only Eric
No.
introducing, but
Off air, Kevin and I decided we were only going to talk NFL.
yeah, exactly. Well, that was the intention of bringing Kevin on, and I've just rarely felt more in need of a Kevin Cole to explain to me the NFL. I think there's some combination between I've been a little distracted, and also this is a nonsensical season. I mean, I was sitting with someone in sports, a different sport last night, and he asked me, so who's the best team in the NFL? I'm like, I have no idea. I don't think anybody does have any idea. He's like, is it Seattle? I'm like, can Sam Darnold be quarterbacking the best team in the NFL? I kind of doubt it, but Kevin Cole's going to tell me tomorrow. I'm going to understand better at the end of that conversation. So can you clarify? You just did a whole bunch of methodology and throat clearing. I just want to know, Kevin, who's the best team in the NFL?
Yeah, well, I mean, I have the Rams as the best team in the NFL, so that points back to what I was saying, where it being off by what happened last week versus what had happened in the past, and a decent gap between them and a number of teams in a second tier or a 1B sort of tier after that. And I agree with you. Although I think we're probably biased to thinking this more so than what it is every year, to be like, whoa, it's crazy what's going on this year, just because we're always late, of course, updating what's happening based upon the evidence. But I do think there is a lot going on this season, where I was looking at my preseason rankings versus win-loss records right now. And it is a dramatic difference. I mean, there's none of the teams that are up at the top with these 9 wins and over teams were really top 5 teams for me coming into the season. But it doesn't. But then if I compare that to my go forward rankings, there are some of these top 5 teams who are still really, really near the top. So it kind of shows you how that disconnect between results and team strength.
Okay, but hold on. You probably have your prior still in your go forward predict power rank.
Very, very, very little. Only about 5% right now in what's going forward. So it's really more so that the performance, and I think I especially mentioned to you guys pre-show talking about the Chiefs. I think Chiefs are just are probably the most interesting because there's nothing we could count on more than the Chiefs being good. But it is one of those things where by most metrics, they're better, a lot better than they were last year. And they had 11 wins at this point in the season last year.
Yeah, but you know the stat also, Kevin, how many one-score or close games they won last year. And this year, if you don't want to count outcomes, if you want to count true strength, we can't count outcomes. And they won every close game last year. In fact, I think they set the NFL record for the most close game wins in a row. And this year, I think they're 1-6, or they've lost every close game.
Yeah, exactly. The one score game. And then also last year, I mean, I wasn't very high on them. Going into the season, I actually had them 5th coming into this season, which is relatively low than where they may have been perceived. So they've outperformed in some ways by expectations, but their record is a lot worse than you would have thought.
So can you walk us through your power rankings a little bit? I'm digging through your Substack. I hope you were promoted sufficiently because Kevin runs it.
I promoted the Substack to start with.
So give us tiers or give us something. Help us consume the NFL with some more sense. Though I think one question is, could we look at if the scores, if the outcomes have been so unrelated to underlying power, then we should be able to operationalize that in some way. So at this point in the season, what measure could we use to ask, is it truly more volatile and unexpected this year than typical?
I try to figure that out, and sometimes it's hard to. When you're looking at things in aggregate or across the entire sample, a lot of what is driving again, this is what you're trying to do a lot in stats. You're trying to kind of like a feeling in a way, a theoretical feeling, and then trying to figure out, well, what's the right target variable for figuring out what.
That's the business we three are in.
What that feeling is. But then often what we're doing, though, is that you're looking at the sample of 32 teams. So I looked at it, I said, okay, well, let's look at how much is point differential, because I mentioned that sometimes is a very easy, intuitive type of stat to say, the Broncos are 9th, I think, in best point differential this year. So that kind of aligns better with where I have them versus where their record may say they are. So I looked at point differential versus wins at this point in the season versus prior seasons. Pretty similar. Like there's not really a big difference there. So then I said, okay, well, let's look at offensive efficiency. Let's look at offensive passing efficiency. Let's look at all these different things that I think might be normally the drivers of performance, and everything seemed pretty good. So I think it's more a team by team surprise that's going on, and maybe the marquee team names that are not withstanding some of this variance this year that we've seen in the past. So if we look at like the team,
can we ask a separate question? Just like, maybe we're taking this for granted, but it'd be nice to operationalize it. The relation between your power rankings and the realized score differential to this point. So that would be less related this year. If our intuition is right, that correlation right now, as we sit here today, should be lower than it is in typical.
No, that's correct. No, that is a bit lower. But I was also interested in maybe if just the results were weird. If there was more of this, one score game type of situation that's flipping a different way. So I think from that perspective, it's really that the top teams in the NFL, let's say since 2020, which is kind of when Josh Allen had his breakout and everything, it's probably the teams with the most wins are the Chiefs, the Eagles, the Ravens, the Bills are right up there. So if you look at all those, and then you start to get into some other teams, the Packers are up there, but that's a lot of Aaron Rodgers sorts of years that are in there. The Bengals are kind of, when Joe Burrow's healthy, are extremely good, so they fit into that
You
bucket. And if you
haven't
look at
gotten
those,
to the NFC South champion for the last 4 years.
yes, well, again, you have some Tom Brady in there, I guess a little bit too. So maybe I'm putting them aside as being seen on that same sort of level. But I think those teams have just generally been disappointing, either by records or if they have decent results, like the Eagles. I don't think anyone. I mean, every other week, they want Nick Sirianni fired for even if their record seems to be okay. There's a high level of dissatisfaction, I think, with maybe how those teams are doing. And then on the flip side, you have this quarterback driver for a few teams. One, the second year breakout of Drake May, where I think there's still some disbelief as to whether or not that's real, despite the fact that I think he's leading MVP odds at this point because of the strength of schedule. There's some, we'll see. We'll see about that. They're going to play the Bills and the Ravens coming out of the bye. So I think that'll maybe answer some questions there. And then Sam Darnold going to Seattle, which is just excellent results there. I think DVOA, and maybe if you talk to Aaron Schatz, they might have the Seahawks as being the best team in the NFL so far this year. And then Daniel Jones going to the Colts is another team where their results have been really, really good. So it's not a fluky thing for that those teams are playing so well, but it does seem fluky versus what we expected in the preseason, what we expect from veteran quarterbacks who have been around a long time. Where in the case of Darnold, this is the second year of his kind of massive breakout that he had in Minnesota, but still, you don't normally see that sort of thing for a veteran quarterback, elite type of play. Sometimes you get above average, but this type of elite play is a little bit beyond what we were expecting.
Just thinking, maybe, Kevin, building on what you just said, maybe one interesting measure of uncertainty would be, how much deviation is there from the prior? Like, we know what the prior was. And like, if I had told you after week 13, here's the division leaders: the Patriots, the Ravens, the Jaguars, the Broncos, maybe the Eagles, the Bears, maybe the Bucks, the Rams, maybe half of those you would have said yes, maybe the other half you would have said no. So I like this idea. If you think about it, what is the posterior? It's the deviation from the prior. And so we could think about, let's compare today versus the prior. There's lots of measures of differences between distributions. And we could just say the kind of surprise of a season or the uncertainty could be some measure of the distance, like how much updating has happened. And you could call that a measure of uncertainty. It's not a bad way to think about it. You could call it a measure of learning also.
The one that thing that's it's confounding or not capturing is if it's just the prior and the posterior on your power ranking, you're not capturing all the volatility in the one loss records. And so you might play with you might play with like some probability of success, because that's what's really different than expected. Even if because of the results, even good teams, I mean, the Chiefs might still be one of the best 2 or 3 teams in the AFC, but they might not make the playoffs. And odds must be against them making the playoffs at this point.
Yeah, I mean, for example, they have the 4th best point differential right now in the AFC, better than the Broncos and Chargers in their own division. The only teams that are better are the Patriots, the Colts, and barely the Bills.
Yeah. And Kevin, where do you have them on your power rankings?
I mean, I still have I still have the Chiefs at number 4. I mean, I had them at number 2 going into this last week. So trust me, I'm hearing about that. Also, so yeah, from my investigation that I've done, and again, I haven't done enough investigation. The kind of variance of results versus observed strength this season, just from what they've done. Forget about priors or anything else. I don't think there's actually nothing really. There's nothing really there. I think it's just happened to certain teams. No, has it happened to certain teams like the Chiefs that we notice a lot? Whereas if it happened to another team that we didn't really believe in, if they were underperforming, it wouldn't register, because we would say, oh, well, they're underperforming. Or if you're underperforming in a way where you're not expected to be a top 5 team, but if you're expected to be, the 8th team and you end up the 18th team or something like that, that it doesn't register as much. So I think that's sticking out. And then the other part that we've discussed, I do think there is this this disconnect between on a week to week basis of what my power rankings would be versus the results. In particular, the Chiefs when it comes to win loss, but then also again these quarterback situations, Seattle, New England, and Indianapolis really jumping up in a way that was probably if of any team it was probably the Patriots, where you would have that in their range of outcomes a little bit more because of you'd have a higher uncertainty with what's going on with the quarterbacks, but probably not as much elsewhere, despite the fact that Sam Darnold had a pretty good year last year.
Kevin, are you buying or selling the Texans? I'm telling you, I saw that almost all of that game they just played against the Colts. And I mean, they're the number one defense in the NFL by so many different measures. They're now 7-5. I think they were 1-4 at one point, or I don't know. They've won 4 straight. That much I know. Are you buying the Texans, or you're not? You're just they're about where they should be.
I mean, I think they're about where they should be, but it's hard when you have, rules that are or assumptions that are just baked into everything. And one of the assumptions is always going to be, fading defense a little bit more versus offense and a go forward type of projection. That makes it a bit more difficult. I mean, I have them being a slightly above average sort of team, and I know that probably doesn't comport with where people see them right now, for a couple different reasons. One, they've had some higher profile wins, and the recency is factored into mine, but
It
not nearly
is.
as much
Okay,
as
that
it
was going
is
to be
for
my
others.
question. Okay.
Let's stay with that division because it's a good race, and you have fair questions about 3 of the 4 teams. So they're one game behind both the Colts and the Jaguars. What do you think about those 2 teams? And in the end, with 5 games left, what do you expect to happen in that division?
Well, so the Jags I have being slightly worse than the Texans, and then the Colts I have being pretty materially better of a team. And again, it's going to be looking at recency maybe in the opposite direction, where when the Colts were rip roaring to start the season, especially offensively, if you were going to kind of plot out, expected points added per play offensively, even with adjustments for strength of schedule and things like that, the Colts were almost head and shoulders above the rest of the NFL when we were 4 or 5 weeks into the season, and now they've faded back to still be pretty good, to still be easily a top 10 team as far as that's concerned, but not nearly as good. So I think for me, I'm probably still weighting those early performances higher than what other perceptions may be on that. They still have a very strong, again, if we want to just simplify it, like yards per play, I think they're still number 1 in the NFL right now, for what they've been able to do with Daniel Jones. So I'm a bit higher on them. I would be predicting them to go ahead and follow through on winning the division, but again, it really just depends on whether or not this level of quarterback performance that we've gotten from Daniel Jones, if you're putting that in a bucket with quarterbacks who normally perform on this level, those quarterbacks are probably a lot more reliable for the rest of the season than Daniel Jones is.
This is fun and relevant, so let's stay with this schema for a bit. As up to 8 times. AFC West, Broncos and Chargers. Let's just kind of ignore the Chiefs for a while because they more or less have to win out and get some luck somewhere else. But I still don't believe in Bo Nix. Am I wrong? I mean, I must be wrong at this point, no?
I mean, you can have varied belief, I guess, in how much you are. I mean, I think he's proving more and more that he could be that he is, let's say, a franchise quarterback. Now, is he an elite franchise quarterback? I would also say he's doing 2 things at the same time, which they seem to be at odds with each other, but maybe they're not really, which is he's proving more and more that he's not going to be someone they move on from in a year or 2 or 3, but he's also proving, at least to me in my numbers year as he goes on and on, that he's not necessarily going to be an elite quarterback at the same point in time, which is maybe where the disconnect is. You combine that with a great defense and a good win-loss, that's where that can make the difference, right? Like an average quarterback with a great defense is viewed much differently than an average quarterback with a poor defense.
I would be pretty sure to follow up on Bo Nix, Kevin, if I was going to look at this, but let's pretend the Broncos win the Super Bowl this year. It's not impossible at the Broncos.
Definitely not impossible.
No, they have a great coach. They have a great defense. They could win this. He wouldn't be the worst quarterback to ever win the Super Bowl.
No,
By much.
not even close.
That's what I'm
So
saying. So he's
yeah,
good enough. I'm just saying he's
Okay.
good enough to
That's-
win the Super Bowl with the defense, the Broncos. Look,
I think
Peyton Manning was a worse quarterback when they won the Super Bowl with him in his last Super Bowl. I mean, Peyton Manning wasn't any good in his last season. I mean, come on, Bo
yeah,
Nix is better than that.
he was kind of the ghost of Peyton Manning at that point. And I think another thing that's maybe a little bit more on the you can have quantitative measures for it, but it's a little bit on the qualitative side with Nix is he can move. He can, he's got a little gunslinger-ish sort of ness to him. And he has thrown the ball a lot. Like his volume is not low. He's not someone they're hiding as a quarterback. Now you could say that their scheme isn't the most downfield in that way, but it's not that bad actually. It's not like when they had Russell Wilson there or something like that, or so maybe even a Drew Brees type of scheme. They are pushing it a little bit. Drew Brees, late career Drew Brees. I don't want to besmirch Drew Brees early in his career. So I do think he has those elements, which puts you into the ability to win in different game states, which is more useful in the playoffs, even if you have a great defense. Sometimes your great defense is going to be trumped by an even better offense, and you have to have someone who can throw you out of it, even if they aren't, on some sort of average per play metric that great. They can give you some upside in those situations.
I didn't realize he was so. I just looked. He's ranked 20th in QBR. That ain't good.
No. That
Never
QBR
mind
is a little bit more.
Never mind everything I just said. Bo Nix is terrible.
Well, I don't think he's terrible. I haven't ranked a little bit higher. I haven't looked a little bit higher,
right
but
by the way,
I think that's fair.
He's right next to Jalen Hurts.
Well, Jalen Hurts. I mean, Jalen Hurts is making like $90 million a year or something. So
no, I'm just saying, Jalen's 19th in QBR.
Let's ask about a few other important teams in other divisions. So you just went to one of them. Hurts, the Eagles, so much drama. And where's Kevin Cole on this team?
I mean, I'm relatively low, I guess. I mean, I have them ranked 9th. I've had them low all season because they were such a dominant defense last year without really having a great offensive resume. And then they obviously ended up exploding in the Super Bowl. And I don't know. There's just nothing they've done this year. They had some close wins. One of the wins against the Rams, where I think they won off of special teams blocks like back-to-back weeks and things. So I've been in disbelief. I've been lower than the markets on them considerably. I think the markets have been, at least in my opinion, have been giving them a bit of a boost, an unnatural maybe boost versus what their numbers say. Just so I don't know. I'm still low on
unnatural boost. That's a new quant phrase I hadn't heard before. Kevin, if you like offense so much, maybe you like the Cowboys.
I do like the Cowboys. I mean, I have for most of the season, and I don't know. It's funny to even see in the media now. I've seen some things about the Cowboys defense is coming together. Because I always say, the variance on that side is going to be a little bit higher. So the Cowboys right now, I mean, I still don't have them ranked in the top 10 overall. They're right outside of their 13th, but they're pretty close. Like if they moved up half a point, they would be up into the top 10 because of that offensive play that they've had so far this year. And in relative to the Eagles, yeah, they're not that far away from the Eagles for me in team strength versus, where some people would probably have them.
Okay. Looking for the best of the NFC. You've already told us the Rams are your top team. Where are you after that? So it's not from the NFC East, apparently. Where are the Seahawks? Where are the Packers for you? Are you still on the Lions at all?
Yeah. So, I mean, I have the Packers as being the next best team. That's a team that it's interesting because they just have good numbers. They have good numbers by my adjusted scores. Everyone likes to mock them when they don't agree to say, but I actually have them being better in 11 out of the 12 games so far this year.
Let me just say, I love the adjusted score. It's absolutely fantastic. The adjusted score concept.
Yeah. No. I'm not. I take it as friendly ribbing because, because when I'll say it, the fan of the team that won, where you say the adjusted score said they lost, they'll say like, oh, is this an adjusted this or an adjusted that? They'll like to make jokes about
Sure.
about the different teams. But I think the thing with the Packers, the disconnect here seems to be related to Jordan Love also, who is first in for his play involvements this year in EPA per play, and I know that's a team stat, but then again, passing touchdowns is a team stat, passing yards is a team stat, everything's a team stat. But even if you look at PFF grading, I think he's third in the NFL so far this year. But there are a few people who would probably point to him being at that level so far. So I think he's maybe being discounted because people have a lot of belief in Matt LaFleur and everything else that's going on there because he revived Aaron Rodgers. And there's always these silly things I think that have a huge outweighed influence of something like Malik Willis coming in and playing well when he's played after looking horrible as a rookie. But it's just one backup quarterback for a handful of starts can really affect people's views of how good someone is as a play caller. And we just saw with Kevin O'Connell, who people love and say, oh, he can make anyone good. He had a guy who was an undrafted rookie and didn't look so good this last week.
I think most people, I'm just giving an opinion here. I mean, they're right. A half game back, I guess you would call it, of the best record in the NFC. I think if the Packers end up behind, let's say they win their division, but aren't the number one seed. So they're going to have to win at home, and then they're going to have to go on the road, let's say to the Rams, maybe it's the Eagles, whoever it is, or the Seahawks. I don't see how they can be favored. I just don't see how the Packers, of all the teams that are there, I almost feel like they need the number one seed the most. Besides, you skip a game. Like, I don't have any faith in the Packers on the road in a big playoff game.
Well, I mean, if I was going to say who needs the number one seed the most, I guess I would say the Lions, so they could be at the Dome and playing in the Dome the entire time might be the most important. But I mean, they've beaten the Lions a couple of times now already. They've had some struggles in other games, but it's really strange because after that first week of the season, I think with Micah Parsons coming there, probably being a little bit overvalued in his impact, people are seeing them as a Super Bowl contender initially, and then I guess they've had some bad performances on some high profile games, but I don't know. But at least by my numbers, they're still right up there. Whereas Detroit is maybe faded a little bit from what I was expecting due to some injuries and some other things so far this year.
I just want to note that they play Sunday afternoon with the Bears are coming to town. The current number one seed Chicago Bears going into Green Bay as 6.5-point underdogs. And we know home field's dwindled.
Yeah, if the Bears win that game, I'm gonna hear about it. I'm definitely gonna hear about it.
Okay,
I think Mike Sando over at The Athletic, he wrote a column about the Bears not being probably as good as they are. It's kind of too easy at this point to talk about these different things, but the Bears being another game, right? So they won a really high profile game this last week, and their offense stunk, and their passing offense really. Their offense didn't stink, but their passing offense really bad.
It wasn't good. Yeah, it was really bad.
Well, but there's one play. There was one highlight play that got shown a lot from Caleb, and I think Caleb was one of those guys where the film hipsters, they love to see that one play, and they say, you know what, if we can get him to do that 10 times a game, but the problem is he just can't do it 10 times a game. So
look, we got a playoff, essentially, in my view, a playoff game on Thursday night. I was talking about it just before we came on the air here. Cowboys-Lions, Thursday night. Whoever loses that game is essentially eliminated. I mean, if the Cowboys are 6-1, they're not making the playoffs. If the Lions go to 7-6, they're probably not making the playoffs. I'm just saying that's a high-profile Thursday night game.
Was that just last year that Dallas went to Detroit and got knocked out of the playoffs? Is that what? Am I thinking about that right? No. One of the last.
I remember it.
I was going to say 2 years ago. I didn't think Dallas made. But
maybe I got it wrong. All right, but we're taking too much of your time. But I got to ask you two more teams. My two favorite teams: Ravens and Bills.
The Bucks.
No,
I thought you were going to say the Buccaneers.
Sorry. No, two other B teams. And Eric's got some Bills love in him.
I do.
So it's just not as much as his Bucks or Eagles love. Kevin, give us some hope. Bills and Ravens.
Well, I mean, the Ravens are probably the other team along with the Chiefs who has a combination of, as far as their struggles versus their record versus where you're expecting them going to the season being the furthest off. But I think it's been a combination of Jackson's injury, and at least since returning from injury, he has not been very good, and their defense was struggling a lot earlier this year. So, I mean, I still have them as on the on the outside of the top 10, but I'm not sure it's good enough, honestly, to really get them going to make a run in the playoffs.
Um, yeah, it's odd that the team is odd this year. Obviously, the Jackson injury is a huge thing, but just independently of that, it seems like so far off expectations.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at like just for offensive EPA per play, they've had the last, I guess, has he been back for 4 weeks? It's just barely positive, negative, barely positive, negative, and I mean that's bad for a team that you're expecting to have a good offense. So I think that's one of the problems is you hate to point to a few games and say is something wrong with. But there were at least numerous plays, whether it was against a very easy Jets team or other offenses that they've played, I mean, defenses they played recently, where I don't know, it just the things are not clicking at
Yeah,
least for them right
right.
now, and we have a smaller sample to judge Lamar Jackson by this season.
So the Bills did them a favor and knocked the Steelers off in a pretty impressive win, I would say, last weekend. Talk about the Bills. They're obviously got they're looking a wild card this year for the first time in a while. They're looking at a legitimate conference division peer that's outpacing them. What do you think about the Bills?
Well, they're an interesting situation because last year they had to sneak in with a late run where fundamentally they were a lot better than their record at about the same point. I think they're still a bit better than their record, and I mean I've viewed the Bills as, and maybe I'm off from some people's perception on this, but again, since 2020 when Allen had his third year breakout till now, as being the second best team in the NFL overall, despite the fact that they never made the Super Bowl because the Chiefs make it every single year, no matter how well Josh Allen seems to play in some of those games. And Josh Allen, as I'm not sure if people still have Patrick Mahomes as in his own tier, but I think I still do at this point as being the best quarterback in the NFL. But if anyone's approaching him, to me, it's Josh Allen. So when you have kind of that history of success as a team and you have that level of quarterback, and I think he can probably turn it on or off a little bit more than what some others can do because of his ability to do I mean, he can be in a shootout or he can, grind out quarterback design runs all day long if he wants to do it. He's now been performing well in a short passing yak offense, and he used to chuck the ball, 30 yards down the field, sometimes ill-advisedly in the past. So I don't know. I think he's just on that level where I'm always going to be backing them as a top-notch team if they make the playoffs.
Look, the tough thing for the Bills or anybody that's in that 7th spot in the AFC is to make the Super Bowl, you're probably going to have to win at Denver and at Patriots, and that's not going to be trivial to do. It's not trivial for any 7 seed to make the Super Bowl, but I'm just saying those are two strong-ish teams, and it will not be easy.
I'm with Kevin. You if you have to back some team in those situations, you want to back a team with a proven quarterback. And
I agree with
Josh
that.
Allen's about as proven as we have at this stage. Okay, in just 30 seconds, if you had to put chips on 3 teams, your life depends on getting the Super Bowl winner. Which 3 teams you got?
The Super Bowl winner. Okay, well, we're gonna have to factor in, record and
For sure. Yes.
and how good I think these teams actually are at this point. I mean, it's a weird situation where the NFC has been performing a little bit better, but I still think the AFC could be a harder path if these teams end up making the playoffs. So it would probably be like multiple teams out of the NFC. So the Rams and probably the Packers next. And then I'd probably take I guess I would go with the Bills before flipping back and just off of record. And you never know what could happen in another difficult place to play is Seattle. You never know. Let's go with Sam Darnold after that and say he's got the record, and maybe he's just crazy enough to get his team to the Super Bowl.
Okay. Well, one of the things you're telling us is you like 3 teams out of the NFC, and you just damn near put all your chips on getting one of those, and it'd be Rams, Seahawks, and Packers, not in that order. Rams, Packers, Seahawks. Interesting, fun.
Well, I just think if the Ravens or the Chiefs make it, and the Bills are in there, you're going to have some stiff competition to get out,
Yeah.
even if you have a strong record. Like let's say you're
yeah.
the Patriots or the Broncos or someone like that. You're going to have a pretty tough time, I think. And if they all make it in there, then it's just stacked as far as the difficulty of getting out of that situation. Whereas if you're the Rams or you're the Seahawks or you're the Packers and you get one of those top seeds, I think you could have a more comfortable trip
Good
through
thinking.
the playoffs.
Yep, like it. Kevin, thanks for the time, man. Really appreciate it. Y'all go track him down. Kevin Cole, Unexpected Points, Substack, fantastic read on sports analytics, especially on the NFL. Kevin Cole, thanks for the time, man. Good to see you.
Good to see you guys too. Thanks so much.
Come back and join us after the
All
break.
right.
Welcome back. Welcome back to Wharton Moneyball. Welcome back to the second half of this week's show, a full hour on sports analytics coming to you on the Wharton Podcast Network. This is Cade Massey, back in the host chair after yet another technology issue at the top of the show. Eric sliding in gracefully, kicking us off last quarter. Announcement, PSA for especially my team members. I'm on a brand new laptop. As of 2 hours ago, I have technology that wasn't produced pre-pandemic, and maybe that will help with the cooperation with our platform. We are just off the line with Kevin Cole. Kevin, bringing us up to speed. Very helpful to me on the NFL side. We've got about 15 minutes to run through the rest of the sporting world. Top up, first thing, let's acknowledge regular season over in college football, except for Army-Navy. We've got some conference championship games dead ahead this weekend. We have a little bit of drama around the playoff seeds, the bracket, who's going to be in. There's not a lot of drama, but there's some. There's a few slots to be
I have a
sorted
question.
yet.
I do have a question for you about that. Let's imagine that in the SEC championship game, okay, not hard to believe Georgia beats Alabama. Let's say that happens. Alabama's now a 3-loss team. So do they count that? Like we've talked about, like there are a bunch of 2-loss teams that might say, wait a second, Bama's lost 3. What happens if Georgia beats Alabama?
We don't have enough track record to really know, much less track record with this committee, because committees change year to year. There's plenty of argument that you shouldn't be penalized for making a conference championship and losing. And I think that's probably the standard expectation. But if a team is pantsed and embarrassed and shown to be not what we thought they were, the committee has the right to revise. So I don't think that's going to happen. But I think if they got pantsed, there's some chance. But mostly no. And I don't think they should. I don't think they should be punished for making the SEC championship game.
Good. I mean, I'm fine with a 3-loss team making the playoffs. If that,
How about I got a 3-loss team for you.
Well, I just forget. You'll correct me. Did Texas play Alabama this year?
No. They played and lost to Ohio State, and they played and lost to Georgia, and critically, vitally for them.
No, I know they
played
beat
and lost to
Texas Tech or whoever the last week or whatever.
Texas A&M, and you got up Texas Tech. They haven't played Texas Tech. They beat A&M.
A&M.
We don't need to talk about Texas right now. What is notable, Eric? You like chaos. I'll give you. This isn't chaos, but you'll like this story.
All right, give it to me. Yeah.
Duke has 5 losses, but by various tiebreaker shenanigans, have made it into the ACC championship game against UVA. And the rule isn't that the 4 power conferences champions make it, and then the rest, the group of 5, the best of the group of 5. It's the top, what I've lost my numbers. It's the top
5
rated conference champions make it. And there's some chance that if Duke's a 3.5-point underdog. UVA already beat them once this year. Duke's a 3.5-point underdog. That's not that much. Duke could win. Duke could be a 5-loss champion of the ACC and be lower rated than 2 group of 5 or group of 6 group of 5 conference champions. So it's possible that the ACC wouldn't have a representative. Now I've got your eyes open. Now I've got you
about that. I did know about that. I knew that it was no longer. It wasn't that every group of 5 school, like the ACC, may have no representative, and I would be fine by that. I absolutely. If it means that, I assume you mean like Tulane could be ranked higher.
Well, Tulane would, I believe, be ranked higher if they win their game against North Texas.
So possibly North Texas, whoever wins that game.
North Texas Tulane winner is going to be higher. The question is whether James Madison. So we need James Madison to win. Seriously, James Madison to win, and Duke to be like unimpressive in their win over UVA. And then we're going to get a no ACC playoff. That would be glorious. The other thing that possibly could screw things up, if you who like chaos, is if BYU, who's a 12.5-point underdog to Texas Tech, if BYU wins, that'll be a classic bid stealer, like the NCAA, that's like the March Madness bid stealers, where a team that otherwise wouldn't get in gets the conference champion ticket, and Tech's in no matter what, and so that would knock out an at-large Power 5 team if they did that.
Wow. So just to be clear, that could knock out a Notre Dame as an example.
Yeah, and the ones on the edge are kind of Notre Dame, Alabama, Oklahoma. I don't know who's the least ranked of those.
And just to be clear, if BYU, am I correct that Texas Tech, did they lose recently?
No, Tech lost first half of the season to Arizona State.
Okay, first half of the season. Okay, so if from some shocking way they get beaten by 2 scores, they're going anyway.
Tech's in. Tech can't knock themselves out of this.
I don't think knock themselves out. Okay.
I don't think.
It would be amazing if what are they in the big? Is they still called a Big 12? What are they in now? The Big 12?
Yes, the Big 12.
Oh, it's BYU. BYU's in the Big 12.
Yeah, they're both.
Whatever conference they're in. That would be shocking if there had been times, Cade, early in the season, we were talking about, are any Big 12 teams getting in? We could get 2 Big 12 teams, no ACC team.
That's right. You could get 2. What you want 2 Big 12. You want BYU. You want Duke to win in a fumble recovery at the end of the game, and then you want James Madison to blow out whoever they play. They're big favorites, by the way. And then so you'd have BYU, Texas Tech, Tulane, and James Madison, but nobody from the ACC.
Beautiful. And by the way, are IU and Ohio State playing for the 1 seed?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Okay.
And
we got nothing really to root for there. I mean, it's not a bye. I mean, the first 4 teams get a bye, and both these teams, well, it's another question. No.
They're probably both going to get a bye.
So it's no longer, remember last year, I forget who it was, like the 18th ranked team got a bye. That's gone now. It's the top 4 ranked teams. So both these teams are getting byes. Okay. So they're not, I mean, they're playing for a lot. They're still playing for a Big Ten championship, but they're not playing for that much
It's interesting, Eric. That's exactly right, and that's a fair take. And it's similar with the SEC. It's not as cut and dry. But you kind of have to care about the conference championships for themselves to care much about these games. Other than those Big Ten teams haven't played a lot. I mean, they haven't played a lot of competition, and so it's kind of are they both real? Are they both as good as we think they are?
Let me ask you another question. Is the following possible? I hadn't even thought about this. Georgia has already lost 1 game, right? They have 1 loss. Okay. Let's suppose Alabama sticks it to Georgia. Is there any argument that Alabama should be a top 4 seed, get a week off, as opposed to Georgia? Oh, so Alabama and Georgia are playing for something. I mean, if Alabama wins that game convincingly, Alabama could move into the 4 slot, which is where they have Georgia now, get a week off, and
or the 2 slot. They could be 2. I mean, the SEC champion. Are you kidding? That's a thing.
Okay,
sure.
All right. So that game, I wasn't that excited about that game, but now, I mean, it's Georgia, Alabama still, but now I'm really excited about it because Bama's got something to play for.
Seeds are going to be moved around, but so what's the margin, the outside margin, the extrinsic margin there's a little bit of action, but there's not that much action. Okay, Eric. I know you want to talk about NBA. Talk to us about it. Though before we do that, you brought my attention to the fact that the Colorado Avalanche have only lost 1 regulation game all season. That's absolutely spectacular. Now they have 6.
I was looking at
6 overtime losses. They have 6 overtime losses.
Okay, but I mean, I understand those are losses. I get how it's scored, but they're 18-1-6.
Are they just playing for overtime? Do they just crowd the net and save the defensive zone once they get to the third?
No,
period?
we don't know how many I don't know how many overtime wins they have. I know they have 6 overtime losses. They could be 0-6 in overtime, as far as I know. I just don't know. But I do this every year at this time of year. They're on pace for the best record ever in the history of the NHL, 138 points. The record, by the way, is 135 just a couple of years ago. Obviously, you'd have to mean revert. They're not really on. They do not have an exceedance where you'd give them anywhere near even a 50% probability. You couldn't be more than, I'm making up a number, 20% at this point. It's not, maybe even lower. It's not that
probably
high.
Lower. Yeah. Plus, we'd like to know some peripherals, as y'all call them in baseball, peripherals. Like what are the fundamentals driving that 18-1-6 record? Do we believe are they above expectation, below expectation?
Right.
What's Pythagorean theorem for hockey? I don't know what the parameters are.
That's a great question. But either way, I just noticed they've only lost at the end of regulation. Right now, they've played 25 games and they have lost one.
All right. Well, you got another example in the NBA, so let's jump over there. The
So
Oklahoma City
yeah,
Thunder.
last week in the NBA, Adi and I were on the show. I said, Adi, how great do you think OKC is? Remember, they're the defending champs. I forget if they won 67 or 68 games last year, but they weren't a Potzer last year. They won the title and they were the one seed going into the NBA tournament. No one believed in them. They won the title last year, right? So
People believed in them last year.
but not as strongly. Like, well, they've not proven themselves. Well, all right. Now they're the NBA champs. They've got the MVP in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They're 20-1. 20-1 on a 12-game winning streak. Last year, they set the record, you may remember, Cade, for the best point differential in the history of the NBA at 11.5. Well, they've played 21 games this year, and they're at 15.5. So at some point soon, if this team wins another title, and it's not shocking me, let me ask you a question. When do we start talking about the best record all time? They're 20-1. Okay.
Right.
The record's 73-9. 73-9. So they still have to go 53-8, which is no joke. But they're at a pace. I mean, you can do math. Right now, they're on the pace of, I know there's not 84 games, but 80-4.
Yeah. That's pretty fantastic.
And their second best player, Jalen Jackson, just came back from injury. I think he's played 1 or 2 games.
Okay. Eric, what's the best 2-season cumulative record we've ever seen?
That's a great question. I'm only guessing, and I'm going to say I'm guessing, and one of our listeners at W Moneyball can exit us or tweet at us, however you want to call it. I'm going to guess it's 138 or 139, somewhere around there. It could be as much as 140. Like maybe the Warriors when they won 73, 167 or something around there the game before. It's certainly not more than 140. And I think I have to look exactly at how much OKC won last year. But here, I can look at it up quickly. OKC 2024, 2025 record. Last year they won 68. Yeah. So if they get to 72, that could well be a record for the best 2-year. And certainly, I'm not saying it's guaranteed. I'd be shocked if they don't break the record. You'd agree with this. You'd be shocked if they don't break the record for the greatest point differential at this point.
I mean, I'd like to know what schedule they've played so far. I don't know if it's how balanced it is, how unbalanced it is. It's also we talked about this on the show 2 weeks ago. There's some real trash in the NBA this year. The trash is
really
trash
bad.
as usual, and so adjusting for that in some way would seem to be appropriate. But
I think also you have to ask the question: if they're 70-5, do they play for the record? Or do they say, look, forget the record. We want to win a second title back to back. They rest Shea, they rest Chet Holmgren, they rest Jalen Jackson. All of a sudden, you and I are playing the last 10 games of the season.
I've got to believe they would care a whole lot more about the hardware than the one last record. Eric, I've got another Oklahoma City before we go here. An Oklahoma City that kind of connects to you in a way. Okay. Eric, you're a good New Yorker. Do you know who Robert Caro is?
Who?
Robert Caro, the biographer.
I don't.
You don't. You should. You've got some Caro-esque characteristics, and you should definitely know Robert Moses. Here's a New Yorker, Robert Moses. You know who Robert
Moses?
Okay, so Caro is Moses's biographer, and then he went on to be a biographer of Lyndon Johnson, and he's generally considered the best living biographer, one of the best historian biographers in U.S. history, and he's got these. Every 10 years, he produces 1,000-page volume. He's got one on Moses. He's got 4 on OBJ with a 5th to come. And we're just hoping that he makes the 5th because he's in his 90s now. Is he in his 90s or upper 80s? He's getting up there. Anyway, ESPN just wrote an article about how Sam Presti, general manager of the Oklahoma City Thunder, is a big Robert Caro fan. He's got a real thing about Caro and his biographies. He's apparently an interesting reader anyway, but he's so much of a fan, and Caro is like a basketball fan. And so Caro knows that Presti likes this stuff. And so it's my world's coming together because I teach Caro's books and I read Caro's books and I love Sam Presti. And ESPN wrote this big honking article this week on Presti and Caro. And it just makes me love him more, as if I didn't love Sam Presti enough.
I'll have to take a look at that. But my summary of the NBA is not last year. If I had told you 3 years ago, the number one teams in the NBA right now would be OKC and Detroit.
No.
No.
Okay, see, you can almost believe Oklahoma City because they've had so many. They've been rebuilding towards this.
Yeah, but the Sixers had a ton of draft picks too, and they haven't made it. So, but I think the thing I wanted to just bring up quickly is, we'll talk about this on an entirely another show, is kind of the speed of turnover in certain sports versus others. Like if I told you next year, I'll make it up, I don't know who the worst MLB team was. I forget if it was the White Sox or the Rockies. So let's say it's the Rockies. I forget who it was, who won like barely 40-something games. If I told you they win the title next year, you say absolutely not. There's no chance. If I told you next year the Giants win the title, you'd probably still say no chance, right?
Yeah.
No chance.
Well, the San Francisco Giants, they bounce around pretty reliably.
Yeah, I meant the New York Giants. I meant the football Giants.
Okay.
But probably in the NBA, in a 2 or 3 year stretch, certainly in the NFL, if I had told you 2 years ago the Patriots may be looking at having the best record in the NFL, no.
No.
Yeah, still no.
Yeah, still no.
It's amazing how quickly and that's why I think, in my view, Mike Vrabel's the coach of the year. He has to be the coach of the year.
Yeah, that's reasonable, utterly reasonable. And what a hire he's proven to be so far. And Drake May and Vrabel, you get a solid coach and a good QB, and that's pretty much you're set. You're not quite set, but you're close. Okay, why don't we wrap it there? That's been a full hour of sports analytics here on Wharton Moneyball. Thanks to Kevin Cole, our guest in the first half of the show. Thanks to Marissa Reyna, our producer, to Dion Simpkins, our associate producer, who makes this thing go round, Dee Patel, the big boss lady, and to you guys, the listeners. Thanks for being with us. Come back and join us next time. Between now and then, enjoy your sports.